Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, and we're going to have a beautiful week of UFC this week. Not only because we have the UFC 264 Poirier versus McGregor trilogy this weekend, but we finally have Dave back with us this week. I feel like we haven't had him in like 2 years because we had a week off yesterday, and then he couldn't join us the week before. But we also have UFC Featherweight fighter Billy Quarantillo joining us today, and this just makes me so happy. I'm so happy to have you guys with me on the show today. So welcome. Before we get into anything UFC related, just real quick, give this video a like, subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show. Now, let's get to it. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Billy. How are you guys this week? It's just I don't even know how to feel right now. It's like, how do you, UFC 264. I got to stay focused because I have so many questions for Billy right now. So, before we get into the show, just real quick, Matt's not here. I wanted to give him a shout out. He does have a new episode of Yelling this week, so definitely join him on Twitter. You can follow him at MRyan Consulting. You can follow his Yelling page at We Are Yelling. He has a new mini episode for the trilogy this weekend, so stay tuned. Also on YouTube for Combat Culture, where he'll have all of his yelling content there, so definitely check it out. Now, welcome. Let's begin with Billy. Now, Billy, thank you for joining me so much today. It's really an honor to have you on the show. Yes, it's always an honor to have you on the show, but it's really cool because I actually knew and kind of got into contact with Billy because he trains with my cousin in Tampa. So I just want to hear a little bit of that, how you got into mixed martial arts and actually how you made your way to the UFC.
By the way, thank you guys so much for having me. Awesome show. I love the format, and shout out to your cousin Kim and my friend Walter, who I've known for a while now. So yeah, I started off. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and we would, growing up, we would get in a lot of fights. I have 3 older brothers and a sister, and we were always really competitive with each other, getting in fights and doing that kind of stuff. Then when I was like 18 years old, I started. I got in one really bad fight. Thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in a position where I don't know how to defend myself. I started learning a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and then one thing led to another. I already knew I was moving to Tampa. I ended up moving to Tampa, and then, basically started pursuing this thing. Started off having a few fights and, basically just fell in love with it. Decided I got my associate's degree and didn't want to go to college anymore. And went all in on the MMA thing, made it, basically my goal to be a world champion and to get to the UFC. And ever since then, it's been about 11 years now. I've been climbing the ladder and finally in the UFC, finally making some real money and, continuing to climb it and try to reach that world title.
That's awesome. And now you are a former King of the Cage lightweight champion, former Strikeoff Fighting Championships featherweight champion. When you achieved those goals, just how did you feel? How did you feel becoming a champion?
So it was, I think those were big steps along the way of my ultimate goal, my biggest goal. And that's to be, a UFC world champion. I'm not one of those guys who, King of the Cage was a big title and Strikeoff was a big title, but it was never the end game. We went and celebrated and we partied those nights. But at the end of the day, we were back to work on Monday. And it was always just a stepping stone into kind of where I got to now. I wanted to be a UFC world champion. Getting to the UFC in 2019 was one of the biggest goals that I've achieved so far. And, now I had to get to the UFC first to pursue this goal of becoming a UFC world champion. And now, I'm 3-1 in the UFC. I got some work to do. Big fight next week coming up. And that's just another step, towards the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're currently in training camp right now. I know you're fighting on July 17th against Gabriel Benavidez. What's your mindset right now for leading into this fight? Because I know your last fight was a couple weeks ago. You may have had some ups and downs in that fight. So how do you feel coming into this next fight for this upcoming weekend, or next weekend, I should say?
So I was on a 9-fight winning streak going into my last fight. So I had a lot of confidence and unfortunately lost a decision. I thought it was a pretty good fight. I did some things that, I felt like a couple things that I could have stopped a couple takedowns, could have done a couple things that could have got the win there. So I took a little bit of time off, did some things to really improve my game. And having this long stretch off, I've had 7 months off now going into this fight. I think you're going to see a new and improved Billy Q, and this is going to be the real deal. And getting a huge win will get me right back on track.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see you again on the 17th. So if you guys want to watch Billy in the Octagon, July 17th, it's UFC Fight Night, Makhachev versus Moises for the main event. Definitely tune in. Be there. Let's cheer Billy on.
Thank you.
Of course. I'm really excited to see you in the Octagon again. I'm actually a huge fan. So let's just get into our main card breakdown before we lose any more time. So I want to start with Dave. For the first fight, we have bantamweight Sean O'Malley versus Kris Moutinho. And oh my God, Sean O'Malley has been juiced up the butt for weeks now. But Sean O'Malley is minus 900 and Kris is plus 550. So Dave, I will begin with you for your breakdown and pick for this first fight.
Yeah, look, 13-1. 14-0. He got himself a pay-per-view headliner here. A fight is a fight, and sure, anything can happen, but Sugar's sure, and I think he's really got himself a comfortable matchup, in my opinion. A lot of bantamweights have been talking on Twitter, but I think we know that O'Malley would have rather fought a bigger name at UFC 264 with Conor on the card. Just based off his ego alone, he would have rather fought a bigger name. Now, the good thing about this fight, we know what we're getting, a southpaw who's comfortable switching stances, almost at will. And in both stances, he's got some great kicks, which is quite rare from fighters to have decent kicks out of both stances. And behind those kicks are endless feints. O'Malley loves to set up that one-punch KO power behind the feints. O'Malley's obvious preferred way of getting to work is through his striking arsenal. His BJJ brown belt, that rarely comes into play. But I mean, we should note that he did lock up Hector Lombard with a heel hook at Quintet Ultra. And, saying that, when you look at his UFC career, it has really all been about the hands. And he's got a high striking IQ with a huge size advantage over most bantamweights. And that's been a great assistance for Sugar. Body kicks, teep kicks, great leg kicks. But you'll notice that them leg kicks come more often when he's facing a fellow southpaw. And what is Moutinho? He's a southpaw. And not only is he a southpaw, but he's a southpaw who doesn't check leg kicks. From the fight tape that I've done on Moutinho, there's a lot of fights that he's been through. He is just failing to check those kicks, which could be a real concern when facing a guy like O'Malley. Kris is an aggressive fighter. He likes the pressure, but we cannot ignore O'Malley's striking defense, which has been almost perfect besides, the obvious Chito Vera scrap, where them, long, lanky limbs that they backfired and that perennial nerve got chopped away, which was rough and rare, very rare. Most people, they get wound up and aggravated by O'Malley's personality, and certain critics believe that his durability is still in question because of that fight. And say what you will about that Chito Vera fight, but the perennial nerve, it's on the outside of the fibular bone. It's located right at the top of the calf, and that surface area is so small that connecting with that fight, it's going to be so rare for a fighter to be able to connect with that and even game plan that sort of kick. You can put a certain percentage of that just based on luck, really, and that's what it was. So, yeah, if you haven't guessed already, I do expect O'Malley to win this one. Moutinho would need to be overly aggressive and possess a special kind of punching power to finish O'Malley, which, looking from his CES profiles, he doesn't really seem to have. The KOs that he does have, they come from a flurry of strikes. It's not so much that one-pot power. O'Malley's too fast. His straight shots are pure money, and they hold power behind them. We don't see as many looping shots from him, but when he gains confidence in a fight, he does dish off a handful of hooks and overhands. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Moutinho panic shot and even get locked in a submission, which is the one thing that's keeping me away from the KO prop in betting this fight. But when you compare the inside the distance prop and the KO prop, there's only a 20-point difference. So for me, this fight is all about taking O'Malley inside the distance, which I think is around minus 320 right now. Obviously, you could take O'Malley straight, but minus 900 at some books, minus 1,000. Who's going to be paying $900, $1,000 to return 100. It's not viable in MMA. We've saw plus 800 underdogs cash before, and it's just too risky to be putting that much money up front. Even though I do think this is a great fight for O'Malley, it's just a complete risk doing that. So obviously inside the distance, minus 320, and even then, $320 to win 100 back. That's still a bit too much for my liking. So it's going to be a parlay addition for me. But across the entire card, it is one of my favorite plays. O'Malley, he should get to work early and put Moutinho out.
Now, what about round betting? Just a quick question. For the round betting, do you think he'd be in the earlier rounds, like round 1 or 2? Because there's also value in those props.
Well, this is another thing. Since that, O'Malley's fought some experienced guys, and sure, some of them are aging in their career, but just the Wineland fight always sticks in my head. The feint made Wineland twitch, and then boom, he was out, walk-off KO. That type of power, that type of reach, that size in the bantamweight division. I think Moutinho's 5'6" or 5'7". It's gonna be a lot to deal with. So when it comes to the round betting, that's a risky one too. But into Moutinho's credit, he's quite aggressive, and although he has been durable in certain fights. I've watched other fights, he has been ended, but I know that he hasn't been ended in round 1. So we know that he's good to go for 5 minutes at least. But again, it's the regional scene. It's not the elite of the UFC, and he's making his debut on potentially one of the biggest cards of the year, biggest pay-per-views of the year, and the pressure's going to be immense. And dealing with that for your first fight inside the UFC has got to be a lot. So. It's a rough one, but I think my best position would probably be to take O'Malley to win inside the distance.
Okay. Yeah, and inside the distance at BetOnline is minus 325, so there's definitely more value there, but I would probably throw him in a parlay, if anything. But how about you, Billy? What is your breakdown and pick for this first fight?
Yeah, I think Dave nailed it. I'm going to definitely watch this fight as a fan. I think Sean O'Malley, he's got the experience. He's beaten better guys. He's been on the big stage. I think that plays a big part of it. I know my UFC debut, just being in that crowd with all the fans, and that was nothing compared to what this fight's going to be like on a Conor McGregor card. He said he's going to do something that we've never seen before. I'm kind of excited to see what that is. But overall, just how fast he is, how good his feints are. He's got power on both sides. He can switch stances. He's super long. But again, the odds, minus 900, minus 1,000, it's still a fist fight. They're both 4-ounce gloves. Anything could happen in there. So I'm not going to touch this one on the betting perspective. I definitely think Sean O'Malley's going to get the win. Maybe put him in a parlay if that's your thing. But yeah, I think O'Malley's going to get the dub. I know Kris he does train at a good gym. I'm familiar with some of the guys he trains with the New England Cartel. Coming off his last 2 wins, but he is 2-2 in his last 4 fights against guys that aren't on the level of Sean O'Malley. So really, really tough UFC debut. The kid might have a potential, after this fight, but tough fight to start your UFC career in. And I think Sean's going to take this one pretty easily.
It is a really big night to have your UFC debut against Sean O'Malley at UFC 264, the trilogy. So honestly, good luck to Kris. But if you guys do want to get in on the fight straight up via BetOnline, Sean O'Malley is minus 900 and Kris Moutinho is plus 550. But let's move on to the next fight. We have women's bantamweight Irene Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. Via BetOnline, Irene Aldana is minus 116 and Yana Kunitskaya is minus 104. Billy, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
I like Irene in this one. I just think overall, I think Yana's chance to win this fight would be with the striking, and I think Irene's a little bit sharper. Her striking, I think, is just a little too crisp for her. She's pretty good with the takedown defense. Her last fight, she lost to Holly Holm, but besides that, she's looked really good in these type of fights. Yana hasn't really fought at that high of a level. That's why I think Irene's got the slight favorite. And Yana's basically a Muay Thai fighter. Irene's a very good striker. So I'm going to go with Irene on this one. I can see why it's really close, but I just think she gets it done.
All right, beautiful. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you agree with Billy, or do you have a different pick and breakdown for this fight?
No, it's the first fade of the night. I'm going against Billy, and to be fair, most of my opinion is just with the number, and I'll touch on this again with the McGregor Poirier fight. I think it's one of them fights where it's a dog or pass situation. If you're a long-term bettor, it's not so much about the technical breakdown and the analysis and who's actually got the better skills. You'll see in these close fights, betting across a long period of time, that taking that plus money is going to help you bankroll significantly more than backing the slight favorite. But first of all, Aldana, she's going to want to avoid grappling at all costs. And this could well be a fight, a lot of output. In a fight that's highly likely to reach the judges' scorecards, might be the decider. We know what to do with MMA judging, and that's remove all trust, because the number of times that martial artists have had their careers jeopardized, paychecks harmed, and streaks compromised because of the judges, it's now beyond a joke. Aldana has one path to victory to me, and that is to strike in the boxing range, where she's really good. She has great fundamentals, nice slips. She does have that power, and that good old rock'em sock'em is presented. This type of fight is going to suit the Mexican just fine. Working backwards or pressuring will suit Aldana because she's known to work great off the back foot. And also, Kunitskaya has succumbed to pressure, as we saw in the Aspen Lad fight. So yeah, if it plays out like that, it's all Aldana. But Kunitskaya, aka Mrs. Thiago Santos, she's no slouch on the feet, and she doesn't match that level of Aldana in my opinion. But a Taekwondo background, it does present some great kicks, front kicks, which she does use to keep distance. She loves to clinch and work damage from that position. And on the topic of judges, I think we can all agree that Caitlin Vieira was robbed of a winning streak in Kunitskaya's last fight, and I think Kunitskaya, she was lucky to walk away with the W. And now, with that said, Aldana suffers in the grappling area. This is a position where Yana can capitalize. Holly Holm made good work once Aldana wanted that boxing range by clinching up and completely removing that boxing output. So we've got like a boxing-based fighter versus a well-rounded martial artist, in my opinion, and every time I'm going to be siding with the person who owns more tools. I think her wrestling, her jiu-jitsu, her clinch work, and her fight IQ is just slightly above Aldana. And not only that, like I say, she's the betting underdog. So in a fight that is extremely close and could be a sticky one, with the judges scoring, I think I would bet Kunitskaya. But even then, Aldana has a high output, and although when you look at her numbers and you look at the striking statistics, it does go against that. Her strikes landed doesn't seem that much, but when you actually watch her tape and you watch the fight tape, which is obviously imperative when you're breaking down these fights, you can't just look at numbers. You need to watch the actual fights and break it down. She throws a lot, and that works with some of the judges. It works. Certain girls have gone on winning streaks just based on their output and taking the judge's decision. So, it is a tough one. When it comes to betting, it's probably best to pass or hit. If you can get a decent number on the over or fight to go to decision, pair that up in a parlay, and that might work out fine for you. It's a tough one, but I will go with Kunitskaya by decision, which I think you can get for plus 90 if that's something you fancy. But for me, in a betting perspective, I'm probably going to stay away from this one.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely staying away from this fight because I was looking into it and I was 50-50, like how you said. So I'm just like, what, I'm just not even going to touch this fight if I'm split like that. But Kunitskaya by points is plus 150. So yeah, they're dog odds right there. So yeah, if you guys want to get on the fight straight up via BetOnline, Irene Aldana is minus 116 and Kunitskaya is minus 104. But let's move on to the next fight. Ooh, this makes me think of Matt because he loves these big boy fights. But we have heavyweight Tai Tuivasa versus Greg Hardy. Via BetOnline, Tuivasa is minus 128 and Greg Hardy is plus 108. Dave, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
Let's just get the shoey out now. Everybody wants to see Tai Tuivasa drinking a beer from that shoe again. Come on, let's be honest. But no, look, the athletic and very unexperienced Greg Hardy is going to be back. Another shot of redemption. It's quite evident that his MMA game is evolving from fight to fight. You can watch his UFC career. in an hour and a half, and you can see that with each fight, he's definitely getting better. Training at ATTs, undoubtedly assisting Hardy on this journey, and even throughout his losses, taken in the UFC. I think, taking his last fight, for example, Marcin Tybura was lucky to survive that first round. Hardy doubled the significant strikes, and he landed some killer blows. So either Greg Hardy isn't as powerful as he looks, or Tybura owns a bit more of a granite chin that we've given credit for. Hardy is explosive. He's super fast for a heavyweight coming from an NFL background. And, especially a guy who nearly failed to make weight in the heaviest division. Like, it's amazing how fast he is. Like, I think he walks around at about 270, which, that should generate some scary power. And on that note, he throws a lot of single shots that they do make his strikes easy to read, and a possibility of why he's not landing those fight-ending blows. I think Hardy's going to want to remain light on his feet, pace himself, because we know that he won't have an inhaler available at the end of round 2. And in all honesty, if American Top Team has him correct, a wrestling offense is probably his best chance of victory here. But even then, that's going to drain that gas tank, which has evidently been a cause of concern through all of his UFC losses. Tai Tuivasa is evolving just as fast as Hardy, in my opinion, and he's been in the game a lot longer. I give Tai the power advantage because that man throws everything into all strikes attempted. His straight shots, his hooks, uppercuts, calf kicks, all of them are followed with absolute viciousness. He's the guy you don't mind losing money on, because when you put money behind Tuivasa that he is going to fight for it. Can the same be said for Hardy? I don't know. The calf kicks. Ty's 2-fight win streak has been heavily assisted with this attack. He altered the naked low kicks, which cost him multiple takedowns against Sergey Spivak. And you'll notice a lot more feints and set-up strikes that are leading to them nasty calf kicks now. And with Hardy, when you're going over his fight tape, no check leg kicks at all. Volkov chewed him up. And there was just no adapting to this. Maybe that's something they've fixed now. It was something they will definitely need to fix if they've been looking at Tuivasa closely. And I think these factors, they just stem back to Hardy's experience. And to give credit where credit's due, there aren't many men that could take up MMA and with 3 years professional experience remain in the UFC for as long as Hardy has now. With that said, the level of competition Hardy has faced has also been lower than your average, besides Volkov, and he is training at one of the most reputable gyms on the planet. It's Tuivasa for me. I love Tuivasa's chances. Got power from all angles. A bit of an unknown wrestling game, but he's no fish off his back when the grappling is put on him. And inside the clinch, wow. 7-foot Stefan Struve was held against the cage and pieced up. I envision Bam Bam here using them calf kicks, letting Hardy know that he's got power in them hands and it isn't to be played with, which is going to stunt Hardy's confidence. And then if it isn't over within 5 minutes, I don't see Hardy having the cardio to do much in rounds 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely with you on that one. Tuivasa for sure. But Billy, I want to hear what you have to say. Who are you leaning in this fight, Tuivasa?
Yeah, I think Dave nailed it. I don't like betting on anyone with such limited chances. Of course, it's a heavyweight fight. Greg Hardy could come out and land one of those big punches, but Tuivasa overall, his just game is just a lot better. He's just a better martial artist, I think, than Greg Hardy. Credit to Greg Hardy. Like Dave was saying, he's for what he's done so far to, even be in some of these fights with only training for a couple of years, and overall, obviously he's an athletic freak, and to climb up and to be, on these main cards, obviously he's a big name, so they put him on these big cards, but to be fighting the level of competition for only fighting for a couple of years, it just shows, what type of athlete he is and what type of camp that he is at. So we will I think we will see some more improvements from Greg Hardy. But overall, yeah, get the shoeies ready. I think Tuivasa is going to take it, probably going to, get the finish. I think probably round 2, maybe parlay that one in. If you did want to take Greg Hardy, you would definitely got to take him in the first round because his gas tank is an issue every single fight. And I don't see him taking him down. And if he does somehow get him down, man, that's exhausting, especially for these heavy guys. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the pick on that one with Ty and break the shoeies out because I think he's gonna get it done.
Beautiful. Well, if you guys want to get on the fight straight up via BetOnline, Tai Tuivasa is -128 and Greg Hardy is +108. Now, before we get into the co-main and main event, if you guys have any questions regarding the co-main or main event or anything on the card, just let us know in the chat and we'll do our best at the end of the show to get those questions answered. Now, let's get into the co-main. We have welterweight Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Thompson. Mr. Wonderboy. Via BetOnline, Thompson is -155 and Gilbert Burns is +135. Billy, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
Okay, yeah, I love this fight. I was actually really surprised. I'm going to go with Wonderboy. I was hoping that Gilbert Burns would be a favorite. I felt like that, he's, higher ranked. He just fought for the title. Didn't look great against Usman, obviously, but, not too many guys do. Wonderboy getting older with age, but I just feel like stylistically his striking, he's getting older, but it really hasn't affected him too much. He's looked great in his last few fights, and his footwork and his ability to stop the takedown, I just don't see how Gilbert Burns is going to outstrike him. I don't see him getting in on a takedown and taking down Wonderboy. His footwork is very elusive. This is, a fight in the bigger cage. Maybe if it was at the apex, Gilbert Burns would have a better chance to put him up against the cage and slow that movement down. But I just feel like with the big cage, with Wonderboy's movement, he can be very elusive with that 30-foot cage, and I think he's going to pick him apart most of the fight. Maybe get a later round finish or catch him with something, but I'm going to go with Wonderboy. And I have noticed I'm taking a lot of favorites in this fight, so I'm definitely going to have to parlay some of these fights because, you don't want to bet too much on all these favorites. But yeah. I just think that, I think Wonderboy just has the right tools, and stylistically, it's very hard for people to emulate that. I know Gilbert Burns brought in Raymond Daniels, who's a very, very good striker for Bellator. There's only one Wonderboy, though, and what he's been able to do, he's beaten this style of fighter that is going to try to force the pressure, force to take him to the ground. He's fought that and beat that fighter over and over and over again. And I don't think he's been taken down since the Woodley fight. And even those fights, he's able to get right back to his feet and looked really well. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Wonderboy in this one. Another favorite, but it is what it is. I just don't see Gilbert Burns winning this one.
No, I'm with you backing Wonderboy, but I want to hear what Dave has to say for this one because I feel like when I was breaking down this fight for myself, I was drawn in this one in the beginning, but then I leaned Thompson for that. But Dave, I want to hear what you have to say for the co-main event.
It's an incredible fight. And look, finally, Wonderboy is finding himself with competition that surpasses himself in the rankings, which is always good. But Gilbert Burns, excluding Damian Maia, is probably one of the best grapplers in the division. Second degree black belt under Rafael Barros, he's one of the OG Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu national champions of the 90s. And then Burns himself has all of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu accomplishments that you could think of. Gi, no gi, he's won championships everywhere. He's a lethal submission artist. And alongside with that deadly grappling, Burns has been evolving that striking game at Sanford MMA. Now, compared to Burns' early UFC career, he has moved leaps and bounds with that striking offense, but it is still levels below that of his opponent this weekend, in my opinion. You see, he loves an overhand right, and Wonderboy needs to avoid finding himself in that range. Burns, he doesn't disguise those power shots very well. And you'll notice that if he's fighting flat-footed fighters, like Usman, for example, where Usman was caught in the first round of the fight and he was in trouble, that's because of the flat-footed style that he comes with. And even when we speak about T-Wood, very similar flat-footed style where Burns can look like an extremely talented striker, more so than he actually is. Now, when you're going to compare him to Wonderboy, I think it's a different ball game, and I think Thompson should be able to gauge a good read on Burns when studying his fights and the capabilities that he's got on the feet. If the grappling attempts fail for Burns, I think his best chance on the feet is going to be down to complete pressure. But again, Burns' greatest hope of winning this is by clinching up with Wonderboy, giving him no room and making this fight grounded. I think that's it. That's his best chance of winning this. Open takedowns are going to be tough. Burns has some great reactive takedowns, but with that sideward karate stance in front of you, whilst them hips are not really available like a front-facing stance, it's just going to be difficult. And, you know, as Billy said, we're not at the apex. We're in the bigger cage now. So Wonderboy's going to have all that room he wants to move and get out of the way. What I do like about Burns is that straight after that Usman fight, he attended a Flow grappling event and he fought Rafael Lovato Jr. There was no dwelling on that loss. There was no feeling sorry for himself. He was straight back into action and he took a decision. But the Karate Kid, Stephen Thompson, 38 years old, and he is making it look easy. He's a world-class striker with some of the greatest distance control the welterweight division has ever seen. Light-footed, hard to catch, and even harder to hit. The Pettis knockout, that was a shocker. And to catch Thompson off guard like that and walk away with a highlight reel KO was surprising to most of us. And I think that was Thompson's first knockout loss of his career. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, yeah, that was a rough one, very unexpected. But Thompson, he went 59-0 when he was a kickboxer. He's got 3 or 4 high-level gradings across multiple disciplines. Wonderboy, despite showing us nothing but, you know, a striking masterclass, is a very well-rounded martial artist. Thompson hasn't faced a wrestler since T-Wood. But I still scored that fight for Thompson. But we must remember that Woodley did land the takedown and he did have success on top, and Thompson struggled to get back to his feet. But again, Burns is not a Division 1 wrestler like T Wood is, so it's a different type of grappling when you're trying to compare wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Thompson's got lovely jabs, great spinning attacks, awesome reactions and reads. What scares me maybe is the age differential and Burns' hunger. Burns will want to cover that distance, take him down, tie him up. But stylistically, this fight should be on Thompson's side, strictly based on his takedown defense. But, you know, again, we haven't saw many fights in Thompson's older age where he's had to defend versus a real dangerous grappler. But with that said, I'm still have to stick with Thompson because throughout his career, his takedown defense has been solid. He's a BJJ black belt himself. It's just that we don't see it. Why would you need to show that when you've got such a dangerous striking output? And I think he's just got the fighting smarts to win this one. In terms of betting, it is rough because, as Billy mentioned, I would prefer to see Burns, you know, the number 2 ranked welterweight, in a position where he's the favourite. But I think the bookie knows just as well as we do that Burns got to that position through defeating, you know, a guy in Maya who's not quite the same as he was, and defeating Tyron Woodley, who's not quite the same as he was. The question is Stephen Thompson the same as he's always been? I think yes. At age 38, he looks great, and I think this is Wonderboy's fight to lose.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. But if you guys do want to get on the fight via BetOnline, Stephen Thompson is -155 and Gilbert Burns is +135. Now let's get to the main event. We have lightweight Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor. Via BetOnline, McGregor is now +108 and Poirier is -128. Now, I just want to put this out there. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have stuff to say to me, but I do like McGregor in this matchup. Just because in their second rematch, McGregor was training primarily boxing. He was supposed to fight Pacquiao, but that didn't come into fruition. And so he was focusing in fighting in a boxing style. Now he's been focusing in training in MMA. I want to hear if you guys think this will... if him focusing on only MMA will actually affect his fighting in the octagon. Like, I don't know if that made sense, what I just said. It made sense in my mind. But actually, I want to hear what Billy has to say first, because, again, I just like McGregor. I have a feeling in my gut about McGregor, and that's why I'm following my gut. But, Billy, I want to hear what you have to say for your breakdown for the main event.
Yeah, this fight, man, I'm just so been torn on it the whole time, and I think that's what makes it such an intriguing fight.
Yeah.
It's not like it wasn't like the Nate Diaz rematch where McGregor was basically piecing up the whole fight, and then he ended up getting basically got clipped and then got submitted. I am gonna go with Poirier on this one. I've been saying it all week, and I can't go against it now. It is making me nervous because it feels like the old McGregor fight week. It feels like that crowd in Vegas. They're always he always has so much supporters. It feels like that big Conor McGregor, like the Eddie Alvarez fight, like the Jose Aldo fight. But I just think that in this short amount of time period, I've rewatched the fight. I was actually in Abu Dhabi, for their first fight, cornering one of my teammates. And, oh man, I just felt like Poirier did the right thing by, he got the takedown. He put him up against the cage, wore him down a little bit. I think wearing him down in the first round is the key to victory. Now, could McGregor go out there and starch him in the first round? I don't think there's a better first round finisher in the UFC than McGregor, but I do think Poirier, especially coming off the win, he's still got a lot of confidence going into this next fight. His ability to possibly take the fight to the ground, he'll probably keep throwing the calf kicks, even though obviously McGregor is going to be keen on that. He also has the experience. Like, I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed by the moment where some fighters would be, of that huge McGregor, the aura of the McGregor fight in Vegas. Obviously, the crowd's going to be just out of control, which even though there was a crowd in Abu Dhabi, it wasn't like they had to social distance and that type of thing. So the crowd wasn't, as much of a factor in Abu Dhabi as I think it will be in this fight. So I could definitely see McGregor going out there and getting the early finish. There's probably a lot of money riding on that, but I am going with Dustin Poirier. I imagine him getting the finish in the second or third round again, or them just having another dogfight of, kind of like how McGregor and Nate Diaz had that second 5-round war. I could definitely see something like that taking place, especially because McGregor lets off on the get. He loses a lot of that power after the first round, it seems like. So I could definitely, if he doesn't get that first round, I think we're in for a good technical battle, and I do think Dustin's going to take that one. But man, this one I've been tossing and turning and going back and forth with this one mentally. So I'm excited to hear what Dave has to say.
I was looking into the way McGregor was training for this, like in his training camp, and he's been focusing on his cardio, focusing on his MMA style. That's why I'm like he's getting back into his old ways, but I'm worried, is he out of his prime? Because who has he fought recently? His last win was Donald Cerrone. He was Cowboy, and he's kind of out. I don't think he's up there anymore. So that's why I'm like, is he out of his prime? Is it good that he's focusing on solely MMA this time and working on his conditioning? Dave, I'd love to hear what you have to say for this breakdown for the main event.
Oh, look, This is a rough one. And look, I am Irish. So I obviously do have a soft spot for Conor.
Me too.
But it's just, the fight it seemed like last week when we watched that happen. We haven't had much time to really ponder on it. And what stands out from that second fight for me is the low kicks. I think the volume, if you look at McGregor, Poirier won. I think Poirier landed 7 low kicks, and then in the second fight it was 22 or 23 that he landed, and that is just so significant. And them low kicks versus a southpaw stance, this is something that Conor McGregor has never once in his career had to face. It's a southpaw fighter that's throwing leg kicks. So that lead leg of Conor McGregor was heavy. Why was it heavy? Because he was consistently hunting that fight-ending cross, which begins with a jab, a step-in jab that's been successful when facing orthodox fighters, but not so much against the southpaw. Clearly, the game plan that McGregor's team came with into that second fight was one that just dramatically underestimated Poirier and his ability to give, the Irishman much more to think about. It just wasn't anticipated. I think in Conor's mind, I think he was going to come out and do what he does best and put Poirier in first round. He overlooked Poirier and it came back to bite him in the worst way, suffering his first career knockout. And to add, when McGregor leaves that leg out, his face is also there too. He almost stretches. When he's doing his straight punch, he almost stretches and his face is always there. And that didn't work so well versus Poirier's counters, which have got much better over the years. The first and second fight was so different. And this is more on Poirier's behalf because it's significantly evolved his game since that 2014 battle, I think it was. One of the biggest changes is Poirier's jab and his ability to counter from his right side rather than strike, reset, ponder on what his opponent's next move is, like you'd see him do in that first fight. He'd dish out a few strikes, stop, reset, and that just doesn't exist anymore. And he's got the jab leading a lot of the fight. Now, the takedowns. So Conor easily got back to his feet after the first takedown, but he spent too much time tied up. And when we look at the history of Conor's cardio, it just hasn't fared well by the Diaz 2 fight. And look, it's easier said than done, but avoiding grappling exchanges, I think it's imperative for McGregor to survive this third fight. And on that note, McGregor's excellent at avoiding takedowns and getting back to his feet. I just worry for that expenditure of energy in certain positions. A lot of my focus is on Conor when I was breaking down and looking at these fights, because let's be honest, Poirier has more tools to get this fight done. Poirier can win this by knockout like last time. He can win this with his submission ability, which is way above McGregor. And then Poirier could win a 5-round war. That favors the diamond, in my opinion. All areas to finish this fight or win this fight, they favor Poirier. Whereas McGregor, realistically, it's kind of knockout or bust. Like, as hard as that is to admit, it's knockout or bust. I think the pressure is all on McGregor. Yeah, we do have an example of them return fights with Diaz too. So we know that he does put his all into the rematches, but that's just one rematch. I see certain, analysts and critics break this down like Conor's the master of rematches. Like, not really. He's came back once and done that. Like, and Poirier is a different animal. McGregor, he needs to avoid rushing in. January's fight felt like Conor was, he completely overlooked Poirier, expected him to fall victim to that left cross. But outside of the fight and breakdown, the variables in this fight, they're just endless. Do we take the weight class into consideration? From the first and second fight, 2 different weight classes. Conor was a completely different fighter at the lighter weight class. He was everyone talks about it, the karate stance, lighter on his feet, much more successful moving backwards with his counter strikes. The psychological warfare, is that going to play its part with the press conference on Thursday and then the weigh-ins on Friday? Poirier was easily rattled back in 2014. You go back and watch all the press conferences from then, he was riled up. But there's no doubting now that he has grown into a mature fighter who just may not allow McGregor to get inside his head at all. I saw McGregor tweeting or posting a picture of Poirier's wife trying to send him a message on Instagram. Perfect. I think for me, that's a weak psychological game from Conor, because Poirier's with his wife. We know his wife probably messaged Conor when they wanted that charity money. Like, there's nothing more, nothing less to that. So if that's the best that Conor's got when it comes to psychological warfare, I just don't think that's going to work against Poirier. And if anything, Poirier's in McGregor's head. The turnaround to this fight is super quick. McGregor is not allowing us time to celebrate Poirier's KO win. And look, we have to take that into consideration too. It's his first knockout loss. How is he going to rebound from it? Now, saying that, I have no idea. This fight is a toss-up. The fight is a toss-up. Skill-wise, I have to side with Poirier having the greater abilities. Conor can take the striking advantage, yes, but his counter strikes were a lot more effective in that second fight. Is he going to allow Poirier to come forward? I really don't know. I think the best plan for McGregor, frustrate Poirier, just allow him to come in and counter. Because you go look at that second fight, the counters were what was working for McGregor. But it's tough, and that's why when we're talking about having a bet on this fight, I think it's all about the under. I don't see this fight going the distance. I did make the same mistake with the Diaz 2 fight, thinking that it was going to end quick. But I do think these two guys, they're going to be hungry to get that finish. I don't expect a 25-minute fight. I don't even expect a 15-minute fight. I think under 2.5 is viable. Conor fight just not to go the distance in a parlay, I think is perfect. If you put Sean O'Malley to win inside the distance and this fight to end inside the distance, I think you can get close to even money, and I think that's a idealistic parlay. But in terms of a side, I would probably have to bet McGregor. Even though I believe if these guys fight 10 times, I think Poirier wins 6 or 7 of those fights. I really do. I think he's got more to offer. I think he's the better martial artist. It's just, Conor's really good at one thing. It's whether he's, got the game plan this time. He's certainly not going to be overlooking him. Is he going to be hesitant? He's coming off his first knockout loss. Is he going to want to avoid that embarrassment again? Mm-hmm. We don't know. There's so much to take into consideration. I think the best thing to do with this one is just enjoy it, because it's going to be an incredible display of martial arts, and there's nothing more I'm looking forward to this weekend, apart from the perhaps that my team England might reach it into the soccer finals, which is actually kicking off in 2 hours. So,
well, good luck with that. But I was looking at the props, so for the fight to win inside or not to go the distance is -325, just like the Sean O'Malley fight. Yeah. If you guys wanted to parlay it, so it's exactly the same thing. But again, straight up, McGregor is +108 and Poirier is -128. Now, again, I have so many factors for this fight, so if anyone wants to talk to me about it, message me on Twitter. So there we had it. But let's move on to our top prelim pick now. And I see, Dave, that Jessica I, your girl, is fighting in the early prelims. But do you have a top prelim pick for all of us to look out for?
I can't believe you said that, because I actually think Jennifer Maia is a good position to be in. Yep. I really do. It's rough. It's rough. I have to say, I've got to be honest. I think Jennifer Maia is really underrated. And look, that Shevchenko fight speaks volumes to me. She got Shevchenko down. Is she going to have trouble getting Jessica I down? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think Jennifer Maia is a great position to be in on the preliminary card. And then likewise, Ilia Topuria versus Ryan Hall. I think Ryan Hall being off for so long, it's really gonna go against him. And the hype was behind him, but we have to be realistic about this. The win streak that he was on was Artem Lobov, an aging, close to retirement Gray Maynard, a completely shot BJ Penn, and a very worn down Darren Elkins. So to now come and face a guy like Topuria, who is young, fresh, and hungry, I think it's going to be rough, and it's a very one-dimensional game plan for Ryan Hall. We know what he's good at. We know that he tries to do the same thing every time. When it comes to the striking, he's going to be completely outclassed. So yeah, I think that they're my two favorite preliminary fights on this weekend's card.
Beautiful. No, I really like the Jennifer Maia fight, so that's why I mentioned that. And I know you like Jessica I. But
Carlos Condit as well. He's coming in at a +160 underdog as well. I mean, Max Griffin, I respect both of these fighters, but when it comes to skill set, experience, I know Condit is aging. I just think, he has a lot more tools to bring to the table than Max Griffin does, and he's coming in at quite a big underdog. I think you can get him as high as 165 at certain books. So that's another fight that you might want to keep your eye on.
Yep, Condit is +160 via BetOnline.
Yeah.
But how about you, Billy? Is there a prelim fight that you're looking out for?
Yes, I'm excited about this. Finally, I get to disagree with Dave. It's been a long show of patting each other on the back. I'm going to go with my old tough roommate, Ryan Hall, and a couple reasons why. So we haven't seen Ryan in a while, but I do know he's been training super hard for this fight. He wanted a big name fight, but unfortunately, because a top guy, but unfortunately, he's pulled out of fights. He's had opponents pull out of fights. So they're giving him this young stud, this up and coming undefeated kid. But I just think that Ryan has a very underrated striking game that he's been working on. He's been working with Wonder Boy. He's been working with Tan Lee, who is a very, very slick striker. He's the one featherweight champion. And I think this kid's just a little overconfident. He also, if you compare their resumes, I know Ryan's beaten some guys who, are on the decline of their career. But Topuria, I don't feel like he's beaten any big names yet. And the fights that he has won, he's either winning by submission or he's winning with guys who will stand right in front of him and bang with him. And obviously Ryan Hall's not going to do that. I think this kid's overly confidence is going to get him in trouble against Ryan Hall. This is in the big cage, which I like for Hall because if you've seen his movement lately, he does a real good job moving around, throwing a lot of very unorthodox strikes. And again, this layoff could be looked at two different ways. I think with guys like Ryan Hall, like I've trained with him before. I've been to his house. He has a shelf the size of a wall of instructional videos that he's been studying. He even has instructionals that are in Japanese that he watches. It's crazy the amount of studying that he goes into this. He's got Kenny Florian in his corner. Like I said, he's been with Wonder Boy. He trains with the best guy, just like his opponent. I know his opponent trains with some high-level guys as well. But I think this matchup is a good matchup for Hall because I think this guy's going to try to pressure him. He said he's not afraid to go to the ground with him. That's going to be very interesting. But I just feel like the time off that Ryan Hall has had is actually going to benefit him because he's working on all these different things that we haven't got a chance to see yet. And with his experience against his, young, hungry, undefeated opponent, I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. And I got to go with him. I got to go with my, roommate on the Ultimate Fighter. I've learned a lot from him coming up. And I just think that watching his opponent's interviews, I don't think he's taking the right approach with his confidence or what it almost sounds like he's cocky going into this fight. So it's easy for me to root for Hall in this one. And the other fights that we mentioned, I do like Jennifer Maia and that Carlos Condit Max Griffin fight. That's going to be an interesting fight. I'm going to probably avoid that one because I'm a huge Carlos Condit fan, and I do think Max Griffin could get it done, but I don't like that one. I don't like the odds on that one just because Max Griffin, I think he was like, what would we say, like a minus 200 favorite. I don't like those odds at all. So I would probably stay away from that one. But I would take that underdog money on Ryan Hall.
Yeah. No, Max Griffin, he's actually minus 185 via Bet Online. But Ryan Hall, he's plus 195. So those are good dog odds if you like it. And Ilia Topuria is minus 230. He's a little bit juiced. But that's what we have for our prelims. Now let's move on to our lock on the card segment, Dave's favorite segment of the show.
There's no lock in MMA. There's never a lock in MMA.
But that's why I call it our potential lock. All right. And honestly, looking at this card, Dave, I'll let you go first just because I still need to look at this card because I feel like the only potential lock at first glance would be Sean O'Malley. But I got to look at this. But Dave, I'll begin with you for your potential lock on the card.
I mean, what we should do is lock up the MMA betting public from taking Billy from a minus 135 opener to a 180 underdog. That's what we should do, because that's money right there. Whether Billy was here or not, we don't trust the betting public. The bookmaker opened Billy up as a favorite for a reason. So that'll be an interesting breakdown next week. But for me, it's got to be tied to Tuivasa, I think. I think at that price, not so much, I think this is my favorite fighter to win up, but with that price, I think it's great with Hardy's inexperience and Tuivasa's lethal hands. I think he just is going to own that power advantage. And, despite Hardy's athleticism and speed, it only goes for 5 minutes. So tied to Tuivasa around, some books you got minus 128, and then that's going up to minus 140. But I'd be happy to do minus 160, minus 170 on tied to Tuivasa. I think he's got this one in the bag. I think the odds is going to get it done.
Great. Well, how about you, Billy? What's your potential lock on the card for this weekend?
Well, yeah. Well, first, thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. And I did notice those odds swing quite a bit. And my opponent has fought in some high-level guys. He lost to Andre Fili, lost to Sadiq Youssef, but people forget he's won one fight since the beginning of 2019. He missed weight by like 5 pounds his last fight, so hopefully he makes weight because. I don't know if I'll even accept a fight if he misses by 4 or 5 pounds. We'll have to negotiate that. But I'm super excited, and I love just sitting down and talking to experienced people that know the fight game. This fight's tough with locks. Anytime in MMA the locks. Gun to my head, I'm obviously taking Sean O'Malley against a newcomer. But another one I'm pretty confident in. Again, locks are so tough, especially with this fight where both guys are super high ranked, but I would have to go Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I'm envisioning him dancing around the cage, sticking and moving. I can see Gilbert Burns being a little over aggressive, not being able to get the takedown. Oh man, but it's just so tough. Locks, that word lock is tough. Yeah. I would have to say the real lock is obviously Sean O'Malley. I can't really see him losing unless like a freak accident. Obviously his opponent's going to be chopping those low kicks. I know I would be, but man, locks in MMA are a tough call. I'm going to be watching this fight card as a fan and getting ready for my fight. I'm just super excited to see it.
Locks just make it more interesting. Okay. But no.
I need to keep disrespecting the locks because since I've been doing that, my record on the locks, I think right now is 72-18. So the more I disrespect them, the better I do, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. But your locks are different. You provide the keys.
Key plays, yeah. I call them key plays because I don't want the cheesy, I'm going to pick my lock. It's a bit corny to me. So I just do it my own way.
It's okay. I provide some corn for you. But that's all that we have for our main card breakdown. I saw there weren't many questions in the chat. The one main question that really stood out to me is where can I watch the fights for free? Hit me up on Twitter. I'll send you all the links I have. Don't worry. So just hit me up on Twitter. But that's all that we have. Now, if you guys aren't following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Billy at BillyQMMA. You can follow Dave at DManion_. And you can check out all of SBR's UFC content at sbrpicks.com/UFC. And then while you're at it, give SBR a follow on Twitter at SBR Sports Picks. And also don't forget, give Matt a follow on Twitter at MRyan Consulting. Tune into his new show, We're Yelling, on Twitter. And also tune in on Saturday night at Combat Culture on YouTube and just listen to Matt yell about all of MMA-related things. All right. And then while you're at it, give me a follow on Twitter, your girl, Lee Martin Sports. And that's all we have for our show today. Thank you so much for joining me, Billy. Best of luck next week in your fight. Best of luck to everyone this weekend for all of your picks and all your bets. I'll see you next week.